I think what's helped for me in the last 5 years, especially, as you get older, different things matter. And for me, I've had success, but I've always felt not like an imposter because I do feel I'm very good at what I do. But, I think entrepreneurs have had lulled into this false sense of unless you've sold for $100 million, it's a failure. And you get, especially anybody that's never built a company. If you've built a company, honestly, if you can build a company in a quarter million or a million or 4 million, 5 million, 8 million, 10 million, 15 million, I feel like everybody else is like, oh, well, good for you. That was a nice try. And it's like, fuck off. Have you ever tried? You try to build a company to $1 million in revenue. Because I'm
Right.
telling you, very few are able to do that. I'll bet you it's less than 1 in 50,000 Canadians are able to do that.
Sure. It's incredibly hard, and it's not for the faint of heart, right? So
No.
to get over that hump requires a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. So no, I'm with you on that for sure. As you look at eQuo, like I know you said you focused it now on CPG, which makes sense.
Yeah.
I think looking at it, is there where would you ultimately like to see it land?
There's a lot of different ways I can answer that. Can you be more specific in the question?
I guess if you're to maybe if I take a step back and look at it from a user standpoint, if a couple of years out from now as a user, I'm a starting up a business, what would you say is imperative that they'd have to come to equal for?
Well, my starting point is I can tell you if you're starting up a business, it absolutely you should join, and I'll answer that question. But I'm going to start again with let's break the startup mentality. We didn't build it for startups, we built it for companies
Right,
that are a quarter million to 10 million. That's who we built it for.
right,
So I'm going to start with who it was built for, and then I'll answer your question as to why startups should matter. Typically, what ends up happening is most founders. So when we get rid of the false narrative of startups in the country, the vast majority aren't tech startups. They're not going to fucking Mars. They're self-funded, and they've started because they have a recipe or an idea or a product that they know how to build. They've got enough experience, or at least enough guts to kind of just go, and they use their savings, they use credit, they go with friends and family, and they get it going. And the ones that are serious enough are usually able to get it to six figures, maybe a quarter million. And they're able to kind of get that because they're working at a farmer's market, or they're able to get a contract through their network, or once they get to that point, they're like, okay, this is working. Now I can kind of grow. And the next big stage is how do they get to 1 million? And usually they can kind of do that within their network. Again, not everybody, and it's fewer, but they struggle. They're reaching out to all sorts of people in their network. As soon as they get between usually 500,000 and 1.5 million, that's when shit falls apart on them. Because a few things happen. The first thing that happens is they realize their bookkeeping, their financial forecasting, and their accounting is a mess because they've been going, they haven't set things up properly. They've been borrowing and they've been crisscrossing their personal with their business. All of these things are a complete mess. Now they're at a stage, though, where in order to grow, they really got to get their shit together, but they don't know who to turn to. They're kind of hit their peak in terms of what they can self fund and kind of grasp at within their network. They're not sure how to get that set up. In order for them to get ready for that next, that means they got to clean up all of the messes that they've just done in the last 1, 2, 3, 4 years. So that's kind of that first part. Then you see that group and they start moving further out. They got that organized. Well, now there's all sorts of new things that they need to learn and how to understand, which is, well, when I'm selling direct, my profit margins are very different. The experience is very different than when I'm now starting to work with retailers. So now I got to figure out warehousing. I need to figure out 3PL. I need to figure out retailing. What the fuck's a chargeback? What do you mean you're going to take all of this away? Well, okay, now how do I even understand what my profit margins are? So all of these things are in there. So what we're built for is those companies to understand how to grow the business. Canada focuses, and too many people focus on startups. And at that stage, to me, and they're not bad and it's good, but to me, startups are the equivalent of university. Everybody walks into university thinking one thing and they walk out. Some of them manage to go the whole way through and their career path follows the trajectory that they want, but the vast majority don't. And it doesn't mean that they don't, all of a sudden they shift. Well, similarly, most startups may still continue, but they'll shift direction. And most of the groups and the people um, uh, incubators, etc., are really not focused on what the founders actually need to know. Like if I see another fucking incubator say, here's how you build a VC deck. Well, I guarantee you 95% of everybody that's going through is never getting VC money. Why aren't you teaching them forecasting? Why aren't you teaching them financial literacy? Why aren't you teaching them how to understand marketing and branding and community building and e-commerce strategies and distribution strategies and. So that's who we're built for. So now I'm going to take a step back and I'll answer your question. Why would a startup? Because all the people that have gone through that are now going to be there as peers to help them through the startup phase and to answer questions. What do they get in return? Well, founders like to give back because they know how hard it is. A. B. A lot of founders that get further along that line, they're now looking at some of these companies. Maybe they'll invest. Maybe they'll be an advisor. Maybe there's somebody that can be a collaborator or a partner or a future buyout or. So it's a very symbiotic ecosystem in terms of all the various reasons why people want to get involved. And then the other aspect is you're now, as a startup or an early scale up, or even as a larger scale up, well, if we can go in and you know that you've got vetted suppliers and you're also able to benefit from increased opportunities in relation to quantity discounts, et cetera, that's why people are going to want to be involved.
Interesting. No, that's great. Yeah, and it's good. And I know you spent a bit of time there, but yeah, the difference between the scale up and the startup, I think is critical.
It's I got to tell you, and I'm becoming very, very vocal now because I'm sick and tired of the Canadian focus on startups, and I love startups. I
Yeah.
love startup founders. I've done many of them, but one of the best analogies that somebody that was part of eQuo gave, and I thought it was brilliant, was you don't buy a puppy, you buy a dog. And what happens in Canada in particular is our ecosystem set up where we love puppies. We love playing with puppies. We love helping to train puppies, and we love every aspect about puppies. And then the puppy starts to become a young dog, and it leaves that kennel, and then the next time that we're interested, what do we do in our ecosystem? We run out, we say, okay, do you want to know what I'm looking for? I'm looking for the show dogs. And as we're looking for the show dogs, everybody takes a step back and goes, what's with all the stray and dead dogs lying around? And we behave in this stunned way, and nobody's connecting. Those puppies are dogs. Those dogs need support through every stage. If you take a look at what's happening in relation to the Olympics and how we installed the podium, we don't have that for companies. And it's a huge failing in this country. And so what are we trying to do with eQuo? We're trying to create conditions for them to be successful. We're trying to create success through peer support and real success when it comes down to having actual learning and engagement and opportunities to understand what a business owner and a company actually needs to understand in order for them to grow. And again, it gets into everything from finance through to operations to HR to the complexities of distribution, warehousing, 3PL. These are the most critical aspects of a business. And what do? We say, okay, now we're going to practice our VC pitch. Fuck off.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Well said.